Mark Booras, welcome to the ITA College Tennis Coaches podcast.
Dave, thanks for having me. So exciting to be here with you. I didn't know what I had to do to get on one of these things, but apparently I had to do something special just to make a splash on the scene, or at least get in your radar somehow. So
Well, it's the
glad I could
only
figure out
way.
how to get here. So
Yeah, coaches know now what it takes to get on the podcast, but we're gonna get into that because I think many of our coaches know the ordeal or parts of the ordeal you've gone through. The coaching community, which I love dearly, just rallied around you like no other. I know from an ITA staff perspective, we were all very saddened to learn what you were going through and then obviously pulling for you, talking about you often. And so it's amazing to be here with you virtually. I can't wait to see you in person at some point and give you a big hug, but we'll get there. We'll get there soon enough. But for those coaches, Mark, that maybe don't know what you've gone through the last few months, and even those that do, I think are interested to hear the story over the last few months, how you started feeling, sick, the diagnosis, your response to that, what you went through in Cleveland, coming back now to Tulane, and how you're doing and what the prognosis is going forward for you. So if you can take us through that, that would be amazing.
sure, yeah. Thanks for having me again. And like you said at the beginning, the support, I can't even tell you how amazing it's been. I mean, the when I was in the hospital, the messages I was getting, like from people I hadn't heard from high school, from growing up across the street neighbors, from everything, and people just supporting and donating and doing everything you could possibly think of. The prayers going around the world, everybody, and the college coaching community taking off with everything. And like you guys said it with the ITA, and everybody staying on top of things. I mean, you know, I can't even explain how much encouragement and inspiration that is for me during a very dark time, right? Stuck in the hospital for a few months, basically in the ICU, right? And I mean, just to have somebody kind of reaching out all the time, someone reaching out to encourage me. I mean, it taught me a lot, about what I'm supposed to be doing with my life, right? And how much I don't do that for people. I'm really a bad person compared to what just everybody did for me for 3 months. But I figured I need to make some changes. So, but no. So thank you guys so much for everything, college world, tennis world, everybody. So, and just world in general. So, but yeah. So I guess if we kind of did start from the beginning, everybody always asks, they're like, hey, when did you start feeling sick? I saw you, we played you a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
You're fine. You're hitting balls, what's going on? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I was, as of a couple of years ago, I mean, I was climbing a mountain in Montana with Eric and Lisa Holden, great people and boosters and friends of the family. And I go out there, my wife and I are climbing mountains for a week, and I'm running, I don't know, training to run a 10K and doing all this stuff. And then like sometime within the past, couple of years, I started to get a little bit tired. And yeah, I'm getting older or whatever. And so I was like, okay, I'm getting older. I'm getting unfit. I gotta get fit again. So about 2 years ago, I started getting tired, playing tennis or going for a jog or something. And I could, go for a couple miles, but then at the end, I'd be really pooped. And I was like, this is weird. And then I usually play tennis for 2-3 hours, right? And with the guys standing in a corner, not really running, playing singles anymore, but I could just always stay out there and do something. And then I would go and play for like 30 minutes and all of a sudden be hunched over. So like I really got to get fit. So I ignored that for a while, just like anybody else
Yeah.
would, like any really bad patient would, and really, yeah. So I ignored that for a long time, and then it started to get worse every month, basically, and I kept on ignoring it. And then my wife was pregnant, and we had a baby in July of last year. And right before that, it started getting like really bad, where my heart rate was like shooting up to like 170. And I was standing still, warming up on the tennis court. Like, I mean, literally standing still, not even split
Yeah.
stepping or moving my feet in any way, shape, or form. Just standing there, moving my arm, like, okay, I'm good, feeling good. And then all of a sudden, my heart rate would shoot up and really, really high. And so I told one of my friends here who is also a Tulane tennis alum and is also a cardiologist. I told him what was going on. A guy that I play, doubles with at the club or whatever, and he's like, "All right, we gotta talk. We gotta get you in and take a look at you." And then that passed, and I blew that off for a couple months. And then I was playing doubles with him at the club, and it was just summer day, and he's like 70 or 65 years old, and he's fit as a fiddle, right? And he's running all over the floor. He's covering the entire court. I'm basically hitting a serve and standing still. And I'm hunched over. He's like, "Mark, what's going on?" And I was like, "I don't know. Just I can't breathe, you know." And I showed him my watch, and I said my heart rate was like 175. He goes, "Mark, I'm 67 years old and my heart rate's 90, and I've been covering the whole court." And I said, "I know." And I said, "This has been going on for a while." And he goes, "Okay, you got to come in." So I go into him, starts treating me for every single thing you can do. Starts doing all these tests, starts doing these catheters, starts checking to see if I got any clogs, doing all this kind of stuff. Everything is clear as can be, like healthiest. And I go to a pulmonologist, I go to a blood doctor. I have a panel of 8 doctors here that are trying to figure out what's going on with me for about 8 months. And he and the other cardiologists are working together, putting me on different medicines, trying to see if they can get my heart rate to settle and try to get things to respond well. And nothing would work. So no medicine would work. And every month I kept on getting worse. And he was just shaking his head, going, "This is unbelievable. I can't make any sense of this." And so he kept on trying some different things, just took your usual protocol, like cardiologists do, say, if you have this, do this. If you have this, do this. And so he was doing it all, and nothing was responding. And then finally, like I got to like January of 23, and I was like awful, right? So like I could barely walk across the court. And like, so when we were doing matches, we're getting ready to do dual matches, and I'm telling Zaki, the assistant coach, is like, "I can take court 6, and maybe court 5, and you've got to do everything." I said, I won't be able to get to court 4 in time. And I said, because every time I stand up, what happened, so basically what was happening was I had no oxygenated blood. My right side was like pumping at like 10 ejection fracture or 12, and so there's no oxygenated blood being made, and so no oxygenated blood going to my lungs, so I couldn't breathe. So my O2 level is supposed to be at, like, if you just have it on your watch or whatever, like right now it's 100 or 99 or 98, that's normal. Mine was at 70 and 80, right? So as soon as I stand up, my O2 level in my blood goes to 70 or 80. It means there's no oxygen going to my whole system. And so I couldn't breathe. And so anyway, so he's trying to treat me for all this stuff, and it just keeps on getting worse, keeps on getting worse, keeps on getting worse. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, my wife's watching it get worse, and she's like, "Honey, you can't even make it up the stairs in your house." And I had to stop 3 times going up the stairs in our house because I couldn't go more than 5 steps without like hunching over. And I was like, yeah, I know I'm worse, but the doctor's treating me. Let's just give these meds time and be patient with it. And she's like, okay. And I was super fortunate because, like I told you, my doctor was like a good friend, right? So he was texting me every 2-3 days instead of like me going to see him every 4 weeks or 2 weeks or something, see how something's doing. He's texting me, "Mark, how are you doing? What's your blood pressure? I was like, "Oh, actually it's worse." And he's like, "Oh my gosh, this is unbelievable." So we get to, like, I don't know, February, March, and I'm, like I told you, I had a panel of 8 different doctors from all these places working on stuff, saying might be this, might be this, might be this. Nobody can figure anything out. And I got to the point where I couldn't go to matches anymore. And our administration was like, "Mark, are you sure you really want to be coaching right now?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine. Just I can do this. I'll just stand over there and." You really, can you fly? Can you do that? I was like, "Yeah, I got a rolling bag. I'm fine. I can do this, And I'm like, "I'll be fine. The medicine's going to kick in or something's going to happen, right?" I mean, this is, I'd never been sick my whole life, right? And never been on a medicine my whole life. So I was like, this is going to go away, right? So March comes around, and one of the doctors, they do some blood tests on me, and they're like, my blood's like mud, and there's no oxygen going to it. They're like, "You can't fly, and because you'll get a clot and you'll die literally on the plane." And so you can't go anywhere with your team. You can go to work or you can go to practice at home, but we're not going to allow you to travel. And so I remember missing the California trip as the first like thing I had to sit out. And then the next week I missed going to Tulsa and Oklahoma State. The next week I missed some other away trip. And then so I came back, or I mean, I was just there. He goes, "We're going to do an MRI on you and see what's going on, because this is, it's been almost a year we've been treating you. So let's see what's going on." So I said, "Okay, cool." They go and they do the MRI, and I had just been cleared actually by the one of the other doctors to fly again, because my blood levels went back to normal or something. So I went on the trip to Florida to play SMU and USF and UCF, and so I get a call while we're getting ready to play SMU, and it's like you have your phone on, and you're never supposed to answer the phone, but I was like, something's going to happen, I need a result, right? And this is like 10 or 15 minutes before the match, and doctor's like, "Mark, I got some tough news." And I was like, "Oh boy." And he says, "I've never seen anything like this." He says, "Your heart is in awful condition." And he goes, "There's scarring everywhere. There's clotting in every valve. There's it's swollen, beyond whatever size." And he said, there's things that we have no idea what's going on. And they said, "So we're going to send you up to Cleveland." We talked to some doctors, and we're going to send you up to Cleveland to get some tests and go from there. And I was like, "I mean, how bad is it?" He goes, "Mark, this is bad." And he goes, "I'm telling you as a friend, like, I would, you need to get up there as soon as possible." And so I remember crying. I was sitting in the bathroom at USF, in that back room, talking on the phone and trying to stay out of the way. And I was like, "Oh, geez, this is bad." And so like about a week later, maybe 10 days later, I went up to Cleveland and saw the doctor there. And they're literally the number one heart hospital in the world for 29 years straight. And so it's like, these guys have figured things out. So I'm still super positive and optimistic. I'm in there at the doctor's appointment, and he's like, "Hey, good to see you, Mr. Booras, blah, blah, blah. I just want to let you know, we're going to treat you with every single thing we can do, right? And just the tests that your cardiologist has run are shocking, and they're showing us that your heart is a lot sicker than you think it is." And I was like, "Okay, well, that's what I'm here for. So let's run some tests." And it just happened to be, we had conference tournament that weekend on Friday. And so I packed a bag to go to Cleveland on Monday. And I said, "Okay, that's cool. It's just, I'm here for a few days, I heard, right? And we'll run some tests. I just need to fly out by Thursday morning and try to be at practice Thursday night. And then we play on Friday." So I said, "I don't want to miss conference tournament." And he goes, "Okay." And I was like, "Okay, cool." Right. And I mean, that's literally how I was talking. I was like, "Okay, this is fine." Right. And I said, "I'm here. I'm getting tests. I'm going to get some pills. I'll get out of here. We're going to fix this." And he said, "Okay, I just want to," he goes, "I'm not saying this is going to happen, but I just want you to know that your results right now and things, we haven't even run one test on you, but just on what we've seen and what's been run, you are a very good candidate for a heart transplant." And I was like, I mean, pin drop silence, right? And I mean, you could just like, I must have turned white as a ghost, right? And I was like, "What?" I was like, I was like, "Are you serious? Look at me. I'm 50 years old. I'm fit. I climbed a mountain last year. I'm doing whatever. And you're telling me I need a heart transplant?" And he goes, "No, I'm not telling you need one. I'm saying that you're a good candidate for one based on what these tests are showing us right now." He said, "We're going to treat you literally with everything we have. We're going to test you with everything we have. We're going to do everything we can to try to get you out of here on some pills, basically, and let you live a productive life. But I just want to let you know that this is a very, you're a lot sicker than you think you are." And I was like, okay. I'm shaking my head, and I just kind of got quiet, and I was like, "All right, I got to get out of here. This guy's crazy." And this is like literally best doctors in the world, right? And who do this for a living. And I'm shaking my head going, and I remember walking out of that room as I was getting ready to get checked into the hospital. And I called my brother, and I was like, "I think you got to come get me, man. This is great." And he was like, "I will come get you right now, Mark." He goes, "You," and so so that was kind of like the beginning of the Cleveland part, where I got there and they started doing these tests, and they basically, I mean, ran the gamut, right, of everything. And so 9 weeks, basically, I was in the ICU. I had these neck catheters stuck in my neck forever, feeding me pills and whatever, because I wasn't going to be able to sustain without him or whatever. And they were giving me different medicines and all this different stuff and said, here's what we're doing. And they're really unbelievable how they, went through it all and explained it all. And I was like, yeah, sounds great. Let's do it. And every single thing, not one like budge of anything, like my heart wouldn't budge. And they could not diagnose me either. So like every day the doctor would come in the morning for the little round, waiting to hear what they're going to say. Each day it's like, hey, we got some good results. We saw your blood, and and every day it was the same thing. It was like, Mark, you're the most complex case we've ever seen. And this coming from the doctors who look at this stuff for a living, right? And that people with complex cases go to Cleveland from Dubai, from Europe, from everywhere. They go there because these guys are specialized in complex cases. And they said, you're the most complex case we've ever seen. And I said, you said you're supposed to be doing this, but you're not doing this. You do this, and then you're supposed to do this, but your heart doesn't do this. And they said, we still don't know what's wrong with you. And so they keep treating me. And finally they come up with one last treatment, like a massive steroid treatment, to try to take the swelling down in the heart. And so the reason they don't know what's really wrong with me is because they can't do a biopsy on my heart because of all the clots that were there. So if they go in and do the biopsy and they break something loose, a clot could go loose and you would die basically immediately, right? Oh. So they're like, what we would normally do is do a biopsy, but with all your clots, we can't do it. And the clots weren't going away with the medicine. And so they said, we're just going to, we have to keep on trying to treat you in different ways and trying to figure out what's going on in different ways. So like the last one they did was a massive steroid treatment for like a week. And it was like, like horse level steroids. It was supposed, like the way they explained it is like basically the amount of steroids we're giving you would have kickstarted a horse's heart, and yours isn't responding at all. And I was just like, I remember, that was kind of like in the bed. The last thing I knew, they said, this is our last treatment we're going to do for you, our last thing, but you don't have anything else. And when they came back and told me after a week, they're like, your heart hasn't even budged one percentage point. And it's actually gotten worse in some ways. And I was like, oh, geez. And they said, we're going to have to, get a transplant. And, I was sitting there in bed, I started crying because I was so hopeful this was like going to be the one that worked. And I was like, steroids always work when you're sick. They give you prednisone and the antibiotic and you get better, right? And I was like, oh, this is going to work. Didn't move. And so I was really sad. But at that point, I had 9 weeks of kind of preparing for it, like with my wife and praying a lot and trying to get some peace about it and learning more about heart transplants and whatnot. So then they put me on the transplant list at that point. And then, miracles continued to happen, right? So if anybody knows me, they know I'm really tall, right? So basically when you get a transplant, you have to get a heart that is relative to your chest cavity and your size. So it doesn't mean I have to have a 6'6" tall dude die. It just means I have to have a big enough person die with the same size heart. And it could be a man or a woman. It could be anybody, right? And but it has to be a big person. So they're like, all right, Mark, here's, part 2 of the marathon that we're talking about right here. And just said this, people wait months and years for hearts, right? And I was fortunate enough to go up on the list to like to the top category because I had to be in the ICU. So I was like, there's 6 levels of where you're at on the list. I was at a level 2. Level 1 is like only if you have complete heart failure and complete lung failure and you're living off of a machine or something. So I couldn't be a 1, but I was a number 2. And they just said, it's got to be patient here. We have no idea when it's going to happen. And when it does happen, it has to be a perfect match, right? So it's like not only does a person big have to pass away, but they have to be a donor, and it has to be a perfect match and all the different things that are in there. So I'm like, again, start shaking my head going, oh boy, this could be, I've been here for 2 months. This could be a long, a really long, experience, right? And so just kind of being patient and, going through it. And then 2 weeks later, I get a heart and, just jumping for joy. Crying like a baby and everybody's celebrating. And go in the next morning. They tell me that day. I go in that night or the next morning at like 4 a.m. Surgery went unbelievable. They said it was a perfect match, and it was like one of the easiest surgeries the guy had done in forever. And he said because everything matched so well, and so then I get the heart May 30th, and let's see, recovery ICU, and then I was basically in the hospital for about 14 more days, I think. And on day 10, I actually walked a mile in the hospital with the rehab people. And they had been walking me a little bit because they want, like, first, yeah, as soon as you can walk, like, they're like, we need you to start walking, right? And they get you up, and I'm like, I've got wires coming out of me, IVs in every arm, neck, blah blah blah, and and I just got a new heart, and they're like, no, we got to get up, let's get up. I was like, I can't even negotiate half this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And but I started moving around, and they said, yeah, well, they said, hey, listen, let's start walking around. So we go around the floor a bunch of times, and they've clocked it, and they said, if you want, we have this board over here. You showed me this board, like, in this room, and it had all these stars on it, and said, if you want, you can try to do a mile when you're ready, and you can write a star on the board. And I was like, that's all somebody had to tell me, right? It was like, I challenge you, I dare you to do this, right? And I was like, I'll do it. So I remember after she told me that, like, the day later, I was like, all right, let's do this. And she's like, really? And I was, yeah, let's see how far I can get, whatever. And so we did it that day, and I wrote the star
Yeah.
on the board. It was like, yeah. So it was like day 10 after the heart, and doctors, again, were just amazed at the recovery that was going on. And they had attributed a lot of it because I was a little bit younger and already in decent condition. Like, the rest of my organs were good. So a lot of people that are sick, they have problems with different organs as well. So mine were all in really good condition, and I wasn't, like, sick in any other way. And I already had, like, a decent amount of muscle tone and whatnot at, like, fitness level, I guess. Even though I wasn't, I'd been sick for a year and a half, so I'd already, I hadn't been doing anything. I was still in a good condition. So my body started recovering fast. And so I got out and started walking a couple miles a day. I had to stay in Cleveland for 8 weeks for the testing with the biopsies, and going in every week for a biopsy, and they test you for rejection to see, because what happens is, when you get a heart transplant or a transplant of any kind, your body treats that new organ like a virus. And so it tries to reject that organ, like, immediately. And so I'm on, like, an insane level of drugs that take away my immune system so that it doesn't fight the new heart. So you got to go in every week for biopsies, where they cut out pieces of your heart, and then they check it for rejection. So I did that for 8 weeks in Cleveland, and just kept on doing my walking and stuff. Was walking 2-3 miles a day, feeling good. And then after those were all clear, they cleared me to go home. And the doctor said, you're doing so great with your recovery, I'm going to clear you to go to work. I'm going to clear you to go recruiting. I'm going to clear you to go to practice. I'm going to clear you to travel with the team. But you have to, you basically have to do it very, very reasonably, like, and you have to pretend like you have COVID. Everybody's got COVID again, because I have no immune system, or very reduced immune system because of the medicine. So I can get sick easy. And then once you're sick, you have nothing to fight it. So you literally stay sick longer, or else you have to go to the hospital and just be on an IV for a week. So they said, just be careful with everything. And they said, and I remember the doctor saying, last thing as I'm walking out, he goes, Mark, you're doing unbelievable. Don't screw it up. And I was like, you must know me really well. And just talked about doing things, basically nice and slow. And that's not really who I am. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, I'll be good. And then I got home, and I remember the first week being home. I was so excited to be home. I was like doing this because we hadn't been home in like 3 or 4 months, right? So, like, the house is a wreck, and the garden's a wreck, and this is blah blah blah. And I'm like, I gotta do this. And I, like, started cramping, and I was like, I had no muscle, right? I didn't know what. I mean, everything was pitiful. So I was like, I gotta slow down. So, but anyway, yeah. So that was when I got back about at July 30th. And then started going to the office a few hours a day just to get acclimated again. And then practice started about a week or so ago. Started going to practice and that. And so I've been, I'm started playing tennis at 12 weeks. I was allowed to hit tennis balls for the first time. So I did that, and lasted for about 2 minutes, and got really tired. And then so I've been trying to hit about every other day at practice with the guys. I just go in and warm up, for about 10 minutes, and get used to it again. I'm doing cardiac rehab now 3 days a week. And then, which is basically just some fitness stuff and some strength training and seeing
Hmm.
some improvements there. And then just walking a lot with my wife and baby and the other days. And supposed to travel next weekend to a tournament. We'll see. If
Wow.
everything's healthy and I feel good, I'll be up grinding away.
Yeah. Amazing. Wow, what I can't believe we're going to talk about college tennis now in a few minutes. It kind of seems kind of silly, but what an amazing story. You look great, Mark. Yeah, again, just thrilled that you're back at it, and please keep taking it easy. I'm sure everybody around you just keeps telling you that, and there's no rush here. We want you back to 100% sooner rather than later. But yeah, I'm interested to know, Mark, how your perspective on life has changed and maybe even, around the job, and what's important as it relates to your job as a head coach in college tennis.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I kind of I always thought I had a pretty decent perspective beforehand because I was, I wanted to be a champion. I always want to win the championships or, be top this in the nation or do something. And so I was super, super competitive. But I always thought I had a decent perspective with, just saying, hey, let's keep it all in view here, the big picture, right? And then this comes along, and it's a huge punch in the face and punch in the gut at the same time, right? And you're just like, whoa, and it's very humbling. It's it sets you back, right? And it kind of lets you know, like, hey, this is great. I want you to do this, but there's some bigger things out here we need to focus on, right? And well, we talked a little bit in the beginning about, like the importance of the encouragement and the inspiration, like when I was in the hospital. But I mean, that I've always been, I think I'm like a positive guy and an optimistic guy, and I help people in a lot of different ways. And I always try to do stuff. And I'm a decent guy. I'm not good. I'm just decent. But like after going through that, I was like, man, you know, I need to do something, right? And I need to do some more, right? And I mean, these people are just going above and beyond, caring for me and loving me. So I think one of the big perspectives was just about, like, hey, how am I, really going to reach out after this, right? Because we talk about it in sports, we talk about it in life, but we always say that your hardship or disciplines are what allow you to get stronger. And then with me and my faith, I always talk about hardships as creating new ministry options and opportunities, right? And so I was like, what's going to be next? And I mean, it doesn't mean I'm not going to be a college coach, but there's going to be something out there
Hmm.
that I probably need to invest in, right? and make myself open to. So I think that's one of the big things that changed was like, where will I plug in after this, right? And because I had certain things I was doing beforehand with like, tennis obviously, and then like church and community and neighborhood and da da da. And now it's like, boom, this is a whole like different avenue, right? And so one of the doctors that took care of me, favorite doctor in the world, Dr. Vanessa Bloomer. She's basically by my side for 12 weeks in the hospital, and she started to plug me in with some different things with the heart failure associations, and asked me to be on some committees and whatnot.
Okay.
And like next week, I'm going to talk at I'm going to talk at a convention for the Heart Failure Association and tell my story and whatnot. And she's like, there's going to be some doors that open for you. So I think perspective wise, there is for me to like look for those open doors, right, and figure out how I'm going to help some people. I still feel like I have the same perspective, like about life in general, like a positive outlook. And I mean, for me, it was a struggle to go through that, but with my faith in God, I knew that I always put things in His hands, and so I knew He was in control, whether I was going to get out of this or whether I was going to be 6 feet under. And my wife was in the same place, and we were both very not comfortable, but we were somewhat content and understanding like this is out of our hands, right? And so I'm still, that way now. Have that kind of contentment and understanding that God's in control of things, but at the same time, I want to really go and do something and help some people and make a difference and figure out what's next in that, I guess that next stage of my life.
Okay. And what about physical goals, Mark? Is there anything you set your eye on? Like, okay, in a year's time, I want to be able to, you said you were training for a 10K before you got really sick. Is there anything like that? You're like, I'm gonna tackle this physical challenge.
Yeah, I actually did this in the hospital, and I really wish I didn't. But I told the doctors and the nurses, I said, trust me. I said, when I get this hard, I'm going to be running a marathon in a few years. And I said, I'm going to be that guy that you see on TV, and you say, show my scar, and say, yeah, he had a heart. And I said,
Okay.
they're like, okay, hey, listen, that happens, but just let's keep things real. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm not even a runner. I hate running. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I ran my whole life, right, for tennis and doing the sprints on the court and whatever. You tell me to go jog, and it's like slow death, right? And but I said I'm gonna go do this, and so I want to start training like that and get fit like that. And I told my doctor, Dr. Bloomer, I said, yes, I'm tired of being fat and sloppy. I'm getting my pro body back. And she laughed and she's like, "You're 52 years old, Mark. Stop." And so no, I think I just want to get fit again, and take care of things. I'd already like on the I took care of my body on like the food side and the health side and different things, right? But the last 5, 10 years, you just get a little lazy and slow. And this is a nice little kickstart for me to want to go do something. And as I said in the beginning, I have a new daughter. Right? She's a year old, and
Mm-hmm.
it's our first baby, and I want to be around, right? And even though I'm going to be 70 when she's learning to drive, it's I still want to be around for her, right? And
Sure.
so I want to be able to go and run around with her. I want to go be in, if she wants to play tennis, that's the great. I want to be doing that. If she's going to be a pro golfer, like I really, really hope, please, I'll be her caddy and carry her bag. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
so just I think fitness wise, I
Yeah.
want to, take some steps, right, and say like let's start doing something again. And um, I don't know if a marathon's going to happen. I mean, that's got to be right. Then that happens to some people. It all depends on how your heart does.
Yeah.
Just
All
so
right. Well, if you pick a marathon, let me know. Maybe I'll show up and do it with you. Maybe other college coaches, we can
yeah,
all
there we go.
come and run it with you. That would be a lot of fun. So no pressure, but if you get to that point, you can do it. Please let us know, and we'll put out a call to action.
And now I'm on recording saying it. This is the worst thing I could have possibly said, and now everybody has evidence of me saying this, so you're gonna hold me to it.
Well, you put it out there, and it's good to do that, right? People can hold you accountable. Well, let's switch gears a little bit here, Mark, and we'll go into kind of some of the advice we like to share, get into these podcasts, and especially for our younger coaches who are listening and want to learn from the more experienced coaches. But you spent approximately 9 years as an assistant coach at LSU, which these days is a long stretch in Division I college athletics across all sports. But had you applied for any other head coaching positions before Tulane, or were you just waiting for the right situation? I guess I'm interested in how you landed at Tulane.
Yeah, um, it's it's a great question because I get this question from a lot of young coaches now.
Right.
Like, hey, what route do I take? Do I go in to be
Yep.
an assistant at a big place, or do I go head coach at a small place at this thing, or and build up the thing? And I said, everybody's got their own path, right? And it's
Mhm.
what you feel comfortable and where you feel led to be. And so I was very, very fortunate. Jeff Brown, LSU coach at the time, best guy in the world, literally didn't know me from Adam, and I called him, and I had the job in a week, and I stayed there with him for 10 years, and he's literally the best guy in the world, and great coach, taught me so much, and so thankful for the opportunity there. And so I guess the question was like, hey, did you ever start looking for other jobs? So yeah, about after, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 years or something like that, I started applying, and I never felt the need to go to be a head coach because I was like, I liked what I was doing. I liked how I could connect with the team as an assistant coach. I liked the things I was doing in my ministry in town, with my church, with different things. It was all fitting together really nicely. And I wasn't like motivated to go make $1 billion. And I knew you're not really going to do that in college tennis anyway. And I was very happy doing what I was doing there, and I'd put a lot of faith again in God and His plan, and said, like, hey, if He wants to open a door for me, then He'll start make me look at things, and I'll start considering things. And I think one of the big challenges that we hear with a lot of young coaches, and with old guys like me, is people who get a little bit, maybe uneasy or unrest. They're not resting well in their job. I need something more. This job has this, or that one has this, or my budget's not big enough. Or did you see that facility? Our windscreens are coming down. Something, right? And so you hear like people always thinking they need something better or something different, and I didn't think that. I was like, I love doing what I'm doing. I love working with Jeff. I love working with the guys. And if the doors open and I start getting that itch, then we'll start looking. So I started getting the itch, a little bit later, and I think maybe it's because some doors open and some people contacted me or whatever. And so that was like year 7, 6, 7, and then started looking at it more seriously in the 8th and 9th year, and started applying for some jobs. And I think in those last 2 years, I either finished second or something like that in like 5 Power 5 jobs, couple of 3 SEC jobs, couple ACC jobs, a couple of different things, right? And so I was like, oh man, I'm not gonna, and it was like, hey, just be patient. You're the next guy that's gonna get the Power 5 job. And I was like, okay, cool, And then so I just kept being patient with it, and all of a sudden I got a call out of nowhere from the friend who is a friend of the AD here. And he's like, hey, Mark, Tulane's rebuilding their program from scratch. You want to be the coach? And I was like, that sounds interesting, right? And for people that don't know, Tulane in 2005, Hurricane Katrina came in and basically wiped out New Orleans in a lot of ways. And so Tulane canceled 8 of their programs, their athletic programs, and men's and women's tennis were one of them. And so we didn't have a tennis team for 4 years. And right before that, they had like their 2 best years, or 2 of their best years. They were finished like 13 in the country and 18 in the country. And then all of a sudden Katrina comes. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting. It's a great school. It's in a great city. It's great academic pull for these tennis student athletes. It's great weather, and it's a great conference, great opportunities. And I was like, this could be a really interesting opportunity to do something really unique, and basically to do something nobody's ever done. Right? You're taking a team that was top 25, and then they get canceled, and then you go from scratch and make them top 25 again or something. I was like, this is cool, right? And this is I kept getting led to kind of consider it more and more and more, and I know it pretty much every coach that I talked to and told them about this opportunity, they're like, don't do it, Mark. And I'm not even lying. I mean, it's like everyone was like, it's a dead end job. It's never going to happen. And I mean, it's pretty powerful coaches who told me this, and I was like, okay, thanks for the help. And Jeff was very supportive. I think he wanted to get rid of me, actually. So he's like, Mark, go get it. No, but no, he knew kind of where I was with my perspective and things. And I just said, this is going to be a really cool opportunity to do something unique and to help. So there was another aspect, which was like, okay, so Hurricane Katrina happened, right? And I mean, the city's wiped out, right? And you were seeing all these people do these things for New Orleans, and people from all over the world coming in to help the city. And I remember being in Baton Rouge, and we were helping in different ways. And I started praying about it. I said, God, how can I use my skills to help people, right? Maybe I'll go, I don't know, feed people, hand out T-shirts, do something, I don't know, whatever it is, right? And talk to people, or just sit with people that are in need. And I prayed about it for like literally a year, and it was like, how can you use me to do something? And put this on my heart. And he said, here you go get this job, and go rebuild a program and help rebuild the community. And I was like, okay, that's a pretty big thing to ask. You could have just said, go hand out some T-shirts and give some money to the poor or something, right? But again, I felt a big calling to do it. And on top of that, I thought it was a really cool job. And I'd never lived in New Orleans before. I'd only been there once when I was in Baton Rouge, and I wasn't even really a fan of the city. I just said, okay, let's go do this. And yeah, so that my path was very different than a lot of people's paths. And you know, when I talk to people about that today, I still say like, hey, maybe it's your opportunity to go and be this head coach at this big, you know, job, or this big Power Five, or maybe, excuse me, an assistant coach at this, you know, Power Five job for a couple of years. Maybe you want to stay there for 10 years. I don't know, right? But
Yep.
everybody's got their path, and you have to be content with what you're doing. And the people that make the tough decisions are the ones where you can see their discontent, right? And they're like, no, I just, you know, my coach is an idiot and he won't give me any of this or that, or he won't do whatever. I was like, okay, just, it's okay. Just be patient, be patient. Something's gonna, doors are gonna open, you know, and let's
Yeah.
make the decision with the right kind of, you know, perspective and attitude, not out of anger or not out of like, you know, whatever. And so, but I've actually, I guess I did this more back maybe before I was sick or something, but helping different coaches, like trying to figure out different paths and whatnot. And that's really been fulfilling for me as well, being a slight mentor in different ways. But it's again, same thing. Everybody's got their own path, and mine was very, very different and very unique.
Yeah. So Mark, you've obviously had a lot of time to think over the last several months, probably too much time. But I know in reflection, I mean, especially when I walked away from college coaching, I look back on like when I started at 28, and I feel so bad for those players that I coach. It's like I thought I was a good coach, but I was terrible. And if I went back to coaching now, I'd be, you know, 5 times the coach I was then. But did you think about, I mean, especially as you're returning to college tennis, maybe you had too much else on your mind to even reflect upon your college coaching career. But maybe how do you think you've improved as a coach over the last few decades?
Great question. I would reword the question and say, have you improved as a coach over the last couple of days?
I know you have. I'm sure you have. We all have. We just don't reflect upon it.
Yeah.
So,
No, I think uh, the biggest thing that I've seen different is, and this is before I was sick, probably, is patience, right? And
mm,
well, let's go on a different angle, like administrative patience. Like, let's not even talk about hitting forehands and backhands and developing players, right? Like, I
mm,
mean, what we do is a lot of administrative stuff, right? We work with our administration. We have to recruit. We have to do all these different things. And then being on court is, you know, I want to say, yeah, that's my job. I'm a coach. I love feeding balls and doing this and developing players. But, you know, there's a lot of different parts of this job that are, it's important that you really attack them or approach them with the right, with the right speed, right? And I remember just in the beginning, I was, you know, this coach was like, yeah, I want to go win a championship. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to blah, blah, blah. No, we need this. No, we need that. I mean, it sounds like every single tennis coach that's trying to get the new job, right? And they're like, yeah, but you need that kind of hunger, and that it's not
sure.
that I don't have that hunger anymore, but it's like there's a different maybe patience with approaching how to, you know, how what's going to allow you to be successful, right? And I remember when we had this awesome tennis facility right outside my window here, and it was like right in the middle of campus and perfect for this and recruiting, and I loved it. I was like, yeah, this is gonna be great. Recruits are gonna love this. And after year 4, they came and said, hey, Mark, we're tearing down your facility to build a football stadium,
Oh my God.
play off campus. And I was like, where? And they're like, at a local park. And I was like, are you kidding me? You want me, what, you know, part of the reason I took the job was because it's all like, you know,
Yeah.
so cozy and cool, and there was this great thing we could give to recruits, and they'll love it. And I was like, and I remember just like losing my mind, right? And making bad decisions, right? Like arguing with people. And you know, once I finally kind of settled down with it, you know, the funny part of the story is we didn't even make the NCAA tournament until they kicked us off campus, right? So like that's when we started developing players, right? So it was like I get off campus and we're driving to a park every day, local park, and then all of a sudden our team starts getting better. I'm not saying there's a correlation there. I'm just saying that it's interesting that I thought like life was going to go downhill when they took away my facility, our facility, and actually things turned, and all of a sudden we made the NCAA tournament for like 6 years in a row or something, and we had all these, you know, these great teams come up and jumping in the top whatever 25 ish kind of thing, and you know, And so it's like, again, there's a perspective thing, right? And so I think now when I look at things like that, I look and say like, okay, get some bad news, what's the first response going to be, and so that's where that word maybe patience comes in a little bit. And so maybe it's a guy who's injured or something, or a guy who comes in and does the wrong thing, and
Mm-hmm.
gets sick or does something on a day of a big match, instead of like just losing my mind or whatever, why are you doing this? There's a little bit more patience with that, and understanding that, hey, okay, this happened, like, okay, maybe it's an opportunity for the next guy to come in, right, and play number 7 guy to jump in the lineup, and he's going to be our next star or something, right? So there's lots of different things that are in play, that you start to look at the bigger picture of things, and maybe not as just kind of cut and dry, black and white, like this way it needs to be, or else I can't be successful. And so I think that's probably the biggest way that I've grown as coach.
Yeah.
I'm still doing the same drills I did 25 years ago, and guys hate them. But
Yeah,
no,
no, that's I can definitely relate to the patience. Maybe as you get older, most people, I don't say everybody, maybe just naturally you become a little bit more patient, but maybe not. I don't know, but I'd agree. If I went back to coaching, I'd be a lot more patient as well than I was at 28. But as we're looking at the current landscape of college athletics, the modern day student athlete, what are some skills that you think, well, yourself, the current generation of college coaches, and definitely the next generation of college coaches should be thinking about developing within themselves? Is there anything you can point to and go, wow, like in order to manage all this craziness that's going on in the college athletics world, and then the modern day student athlete, I need to become really good at X?
Yeah, great question. Communication and relationship building. So, and that goes from literally on the court, right, with your player, to going to ask somebody for $5 million for a tennis facility, right? I mean, we've got so many different aspects of this job that I remember listening to Brad talk about this dancer, years ago. He said we're like CEOs in our own way, right? And one of your podcasts. And I was like, you really have so many different things you're doing, right? But every one of those things is based on a relationship, right? So maybe it's me talking to my AD or my supervisor, right? It's a relational thing. And about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago, I was fortunate enough to be, down the hall or next room down from a coach named Skip Bertman, who was a baseball coach at LSU, won 5 or 6 national championships, like literally when they had nothing, and built the program into like the most powerhouse program in America. And he came and talked to us. He became the AD after he retired from baseball, and he said, guys, you remember him talking to the coaches, and this one thing stuck with me. He goes, this is not about facilities. This job is not about you getting a new facility. This job is not about you getting a bigger budget. This job is about relationships. He goes, every single thing you do is based on a relationship. So whether you're recruiting a player, whether you're coaching a player, whether you're talking to your assistant coach, whether you're talking to your supervisor, your AD, whether you're talking to a booster, you have to believe in this, right? And you have to build these relationships. And so when people know that you're investing in them and care about them, then they want to invest, right? And they want to be part of what you're doing, right? Then that recruit wants to come here. So the recruit's coming here because of you, not because of your facility, not because of your whatever status of the conference or this or that. They're coming here because you. And I was like, okay. And so I remember hearing that 20 years ago, and that really sat with me. And so you ask this question, and I can just think about every aspect, that we do has to do with, me communicating with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And I can actually say, like, some of the biggest failures that I've seen in college on my plate have to do with me not communicating well, right? And so, like, a guy maybe falls through the cracks or starting to fall through the cracks. I realized, geez, I didn't do my job. I haven't been talking to this kid. I haven't been reaching out, seeing how he's doing, or doing things like that. And that's even been more prevalent in this last year of mine, right? I mean, I was basically unable to coach for about, I don't know, most of the year last year.
Yeah.
So, I lost a lot of touch with the guys. Obviously, we're texting all the time. My guys are amazing. caring for me so much and loving on me. But I mean, you see some of those relationships fall off because I wasn't around and I wasn't available. And so, really trying to rebuild those now. And I'm so excited about being back. Right. But I mean, you just got to see some things that happen, right. As you don't make the investment in that. So I think, a lot of us are, have the good energy. We know tennis, we know this, we know that, but do you know how to communicate with people? Do you know how to, whatever level, do you know how to sell your program? Okay. Do you know how to, talk to this guy who you're going to ask for money? Do you know how to, talk to this guy who you're trying to get him to adjust his forehand a little bit, right? And how do you communicate with people? Is it just on your way, which is black and white, and says my way or the highway, or are you meeting people where they are? And I think that's probably a catchphrase I've used for about 20 or 30 years, is that it's really important for me to meet people where they are. And because that way I take my agenda kind of off the table and just say, hey, what does Dave need right now? And what does this guy need, or that, whatever. And then it's about them. It's not about me just going and winning championships, but it's about me developing a relationship. And life is about relationships, period. So even if you're not a tennis coach, and I tell my guys this every day: life's about relationships. So you better start learning how to do it now. Put your phone down, stop doing the social media, and start talking to the guys, right? Yeah. So these things where we put their phone down at dinner or the team dinner, and they're not allowed to look at their phone. They have to talk to one another. It's kind of funny we do this now, but you have to do it. No, I think that's a big.
So, Mark, I think one of the great stories in recent years coming out of college tennis is Dominic Kofor, one of your former players at Tulane, who obviously improved every year, had a great college career. I don't want to say he started this recent wave of just onslaught of players coming through the college system, but I feel like he was at the forefront. Obviously, we had, the very top players like an Isner, who was around for many years, and other players. But I feel like that run he made at the US Open, I can't remember, it was a third round or fourth round. I felt like since then there's been just this trail of college players coming through. But I'm interested just kind of what are some of the attributes you saw in him over the time that you coached him that kind of set him apart, and then how you try to instill some of those attributes, or if you do, in the other players that you coach now.
Great question. Yeah. I mean, I love telling Dominic's story. He's what a kid. I mean, just did everything right. He was your basic college kid, but he just listened so hard. He did well in school. He worked so hard. He it was just this nonstop kind of effort by him. And I mean, for people that don't know the story, he was unrecruited by any school in America, and literally unrecruited, right? And so I had a friend, Edgar Giffnig, who's national coach, federation coach for Germany and USTA and all these different things. Mark, you got to take a look at this kid. I was like, dude, what's his ranking? And he goes, yeah, he's ranked like 440 in Germany. And I was like, Edgar, I'm ranked 120 right now, and I play 2 tournaments in Germany per year, right? And I said, I said, does he play in tournament? He goes, no, he plays tennis like 2 days a week, 3 days a week. He plays 3 sports. And I was like, and Edgar, if you know Edgar, he's coached literally the top players in the world his whole life. He's literally the best tennis coach in the world. Okay. And or at least I think he is. And he says, I'm just telling you, Mark, I was with him at this clinic in Germany last week. He hits a good ball. He moves well. I know your programs, he knew I was restarting kind of, and this is like at year 4 or something, year 5. And he goes, just take a look at him. And I was like, okay, cool. Go over there. Within 2 minutes, watching the kid warm up, I'm like, this guy's going to be number 1 on my team at least in a couple of years, because he's going to develop. I said, I think he's going to be an All-American. And I said, I've never seen somebody hit the ball as clean as like this since like Andre Agassi. It was a joke. And wow. So I made an offer. He committed, so he comes over and so like that's the kind of the beginning of the story. Like he didn't even play tennis full time, really. I mean, he did when he was like 12 and 13, and then he kind of broke off and did his own thing. And so, but when he got here, just this constant, very consistent effort by him, right? And He had, yeah, if anybody knows him and watched him play, he's got a very, very fiery attitude, right? And you know, he could really light it up sometimes with the emotions on the court, and so that was a good thing, but also was a bad thing, right? Because he could get negative and whatnot. And I saw him, you know, listen to his coaches in ways that we tried to settle him down mentally, right? And tried to kind of bring him in a little bit and say, let's use some of this, let's use some more of this energy in the right way, right? And let's not, you know, waste the energy in the wrong way. But and so like on a mental side of things, he was a sponge. He just listened. And so when I would talk to him on the court, if I'd be sitting with him on the court, I'd say, hey, I want you to do this, he would go and do that. Or if I want, I could walk out to him, slow him down, he would slow down and he would start to respond to a lot of this stuff. You're like, okay, Mark, great story. Everybody does that. A lot of kids do that. But you know, a lot of kids don't really, they don't do it consistently, right? So when people say what separates him from a lot of the players you coached that are good, I said just the consistent effort, right? I mean, this guy's asking me for individuals outside of his individuals, right? And he's asking me for like, I got to go do this on my serve, where I want to work on my forehand. Like we developed a serve and forehand a little bit, and you know, he was hungry to do this. And this is on top of us running him to death at practice every day. You know, I mean, just like running these insane, you know, practices. And he's like, no, I need more. And he didn't even think that he was going to be a pro player. Like he, at one point, I mean, after his junior year, when he was ranked like top 20 or made All-American, I was like, hey, Don, you should consider trying to play a future this summer. He goes, no chance. And I was like, Don, yeah, you're a pretty good player, you know? And he's like, yeah, but he goes, I'm not good enough to be a pro. And I said, I'm not saying you have to go pro, but I think you should, you know, maybe go play some futures. And I remember just looking at him in this chair over here and saying, I'd like you to go play some futures, you know, in Germany. And he goes, well, I don't know if I can get in. And I was like, yeah, you have a German national ranking, you can probably get in. Mm-hmm. And I said, give yourself a shot at this next level here, because I think you're going the right direction. And he goes, yeah, whatever. So he goes and plays, and he makes an ATP point or something. And I remember how excited we were. And I was like, I told you. And then came back his senior year. And as you know, he had this, you know, insane run in the fall where he made like final of Oracle and final of All-American and won national indoor and was ranked 1 for like 20 weeks or something in the spring. And but again, the effort was second to none. And I mean, I can look back in 25 years of coaching, and you know, I had been a part of some other people that have, you know, won Grand Slam champions, right? And like you think about like the Michael Venuses and the Neil Skupskis. I didn't coach Neil, but there's another great story from LSU. Yeah. But like Michael was the same way, right? And I mean, this guy just wanted more. He's always wanted more. Always wanted, and was satisfied, but just always knew he could do more, right? Mm-hmm. And think about all the guys that made the top 100 or top did this, and they all had like this trait where they were hungry for it, right? And so the guys that are we have on the team are all super hungry in different ways, but you know, how self-motivated are you, right? And I think, you know, everybody goes and does what they're supposed to do and what I say to do, right? And but you know, do you take that next step, and are you self-motivated to do something else? And you know, Dom was, you know, just the epitome of that, right? And he still is today. I mean, last year he's out for 6 or 8 months with an injury, with a shoulder, awful injury, just annoying, couldn't get it better, finally got it better, right? And you just saw that persistence in him training and rehabbing and giving himself the opportunity and waiting it out, right? And keep on working. And then he made a huge run this year. I got injured at the US Open, which is bad luck, but you know, you see that persistence again, where he's got that self-motivation. So is there something you can, you know, I tell the story all the time, right? I mean, I tell the story. Last week I told the story of a guy that had the same kind of attributes. I was very lucky to work with Ben Shelton a couple summers ago with the ITA, with the USTA college team, and Ben was, you know, just worried, like, hey, I want some more feeds, I want some of this, and we're playing for 3 hours in the Florida heat. Everybody's cramping, dying. He's like, I don't need some more feeds. I was like, okay, can we take a 15-minute break, or, you know, and then go get some water? He goes, yeah. But I mean, this guy just worked like for 4 weeks over the summer. When I was with him, I was like, this is unbelievable. This kid just wants to keep working. And obviously, you know, Brian is best coach in the world, and nicest guy ever. And but being around Ben and Brian, I was watching Ben just work, and then I told the guys, I said, hey, this is an interesting story. And I said, you know, interesting how these kind of things are connected, right? And now the guys in the semifinals of the U.S. Open,
Yeah.
and I think the connection is they listened to me. No, I said I said the connection is they just wanted to work, right?
Right.
And there's lots of guys there that were super talented on the team and are still fantastic players and probably going to go and do great things. But it's interesting how this guy wanted to do more and kept on doing more, and then all of a sudden won the NCAAs next year, right? And then turned pro, and right. So there's that desire, right? That self motivation to go and do something.
Yeah. And Mark, just one last question. We'll get into some rapid fire questions, but just you served the ITA as a volunteer in lots of different capacities through the years, and something I try to talk about on this podcast, because I think a lot of coaches, especially new to the industry, don't necessarily understand how much we, the ITS staff, rely on coaches volunteering and putting in the time to help with the infrastructure of college tennis, and how many decisions our coaches truly make on behalf of college tennis. But how did you first get involved, and why?
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Thanks.
It's been like what, 10, 15, 12 years. I don't even know how long I've been doing it. So, but I remember George Husak, was just in the region. He's like, "Hey, Mark, you want to be on this, regional committee?" And I was like, come on. And I was like, "What is it?" And he goes, "Oh, it's just a couple hours every so often." And I was like, "Okay, whatever. Yeah, sure. I'll do it." And then I started getting plugged in with like the regional committee, and I did that for, like you do it for a couple of years at a time. Right. And I did it again. But then I started to kind of see, the impact, right? Like there's an actual impact that you have not only on your region, but on the nation and on college tennis in general.
Yep.
And so started to get plugged in more and more. And then you guys graciously invited me to do some different things. But I think the exciting thing about it is, I mean, so if you ask anybody like, "Hey, you want to serve on a committee?" It's exciting. You're never going to say that, right? But the exciting thing is that you get to see all these people working together at all different levels to create an environment that's best for everybody. And that's a challenging thing, like you said, right? And so, I mean, we're talking about, the head honchos, right? The big names in college tennis coaching. And then we're talking about the little names in college tennis coaching, right? And everybody's kind of working together, trying to say like, "Hey, what can we do for for our sport, for our the betterment of our sport and the evolution of our sport?" I started to see that after doing it for a few years. I really loved the investment there, and it was like it's fun to be on the calls with guys and listening to different perspectives from the Big Ten guy who's winning championships to the D3 coach who's doing this or that on a rules committee call or whatnot. And you get to hear all these different sides of things. So I think serving the ITA is super valuable, because we are literally trying to make it better for me, right? For Maru next door, for the coach at the D3 level, for the coach that's trying to win a national championship, right? We're trying to do everything together, and I think it's really cool to see what you guys do. You and Tim have been, amazing with how you've led in the last how many years, and really kind of taken us into a new, a new landscape, right? I mean, as we know, college athletics is changing, so the job has gotten even tougher. But I applaud both of you guys for all your hard work, and thank you for bringing me along in it.
No, thank you, Mark. Thank you for all your service. And like I said, glad to that you're back. And we had a D1 operating committee meeting earlier this week. Had to make some important decisions, and your voice is so valuable. Your experience is yeah, especially with new committee members, and just learning how we do business, and you do it with such integrity, and you make it fun as well. So it's good to have you back. But let's get into some rapid fire questions. What's the favorite drill to do with your team?
Favorite drill or most fun drill? Okay, ding ding.
Ding ding. What's
ding,
that?
Ding. Learned it from one of my favorite coaches ever, James Mackay, who's the associate head coach at Tennessee. So serve and volley, half court drill, one serve and volley, and you got to get to the other side if you win a certain amount of points. And once you get to 2, you have to yell ding ding, and then everybody watches you, and you play this high pressure point. If you lose that, you go back to 0.
Okay. All
That's a
right.
lot of fun. No, most overused drill by me is movement and control drills. So probably favorite drill is I do movement and control stuff like nonstop. But favorite drill, ding ding.
Okay. Ding ding. Is there a most impactful book, movie, conversation, quote, maybe a Bible verse that has impacted your coaching career to date?
Yeah, the book be the Bible for sure. I live my life by it, and I can give 100 verses that have meant something. And you know, there's lots of different things, you know, but you know, that's been guiding my life for the last probably 30 years, and it's very applicable to everything that I'm doing as a coach.
Very good. What is you're on the rules committee? So what is one controversial rule change for college tennis that you think might make it even more appealing?
Appealing. Okay.
Yeah, appealing to the mass. There's
Yeah.
some crazy out there that you've thought of that maybe you haven't brought up on a committee meeting because you're
Oh boy.
embarrassed it would be too controversial.
I don't know. That's a good question. Uh, I don't know. I think the rules that we're changing now, you know, with the bench stuff, I think that's going to be interesting to see how we can put that together,
Yeah.
because it could create a better bench situation, right, where the guys are together and doing things, and you know, it's going to get rid of a lot of mess that we have. But that's a little controversial. I mean, I haven't heard one coach tell me, yeah, I love it. So and but um, appealing. I have to think about that one. I don't
That's
have.
okay. That's all right. I wasn't sure if there's one top of
I've
mind.
heard some coaches give some ideas, and they're like, you know, I remember one coach who's arguably one of the best coaches in the world. Again, said like, you know, no, I won't say it. Forget
All right, all right. We'll leave that one. Who is your favorite college tennis player of all time who you have not coached, not from one of your teams at LSU or Tulane or that you played with at West Virginia? Who just you watch them and just
Ben
like
Shelton.
Ben Shelton.
Ben Shelton,
Okay.
just what a kid. I mean,
Okay.
listen, invited me in a couple of weeks and built a relationship with him and his dad. And I mean, unbelievable family. They're truly amazing family.
All right. Well, I think everybody's a fan now after that US Open. That was cool. Should there be a recruiting calendar for college tennis? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Um, all right. Last question. If your daughter decided to become a college tennis coach, and she won't because she's going to be a pro golfer, and you could only give her one piece of advice, what would it be?
Um, has to do with passion, and this has to be your passion, right? And do it because you love it and because you want to invest in others, right? I mean, this job is, it's not about making $1 million. Everybody knows that, right? And you're teaching or you're coaching because you love coaching and teaching, right? And so I'd say, hey, Georgiana, if you're going to do this, you've got to be passionate about it. Don't just do it because it's the only thing out there and you think it's, you know, you don't want to be feeding balls at a country club or something. I said you've got to have passion to do this and build relationships with those around you and be part of something special.
Very good. Well, Mark, it took a heart transplant to get you on the podcast.
Thanks.
To get you on a second time, you're going to have to get a hair transplant.
We'll see if this new heart's grown. Maybe it'll make things grow back.
It's coming true. It's coming true. But no, this has been a blast. Thank you for all your time. So great to have you back, and hope you'll be around for many more decades in the college coaching ranks. So thank you for everything.
Thanks, David. Had a blast, and I'll see you at the next one.